So I'm definitely gonna do a longer version of this story. I'm gonna do later, but this is just a fun, quick preview and something that we've been telling you guys at RBN right for the last over a year now. One of the main things I've been focusing on is the shift from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, and the reaction of the neoliberals and the Western chauvinists trying to adjust to that. So I'm gonna read this headline because the West is panicking. Do you guys remember when Joe Biden went to Saudi Arabia and essentially groveled and embarrassed himself to get Saudi Arabia to reduce oil prices and increase oil production? And then Saudi Arabia was like, nah, fuck out of here. Fuck you. Saudi Arabia made the Biden administration look so weak. So as Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world continue to reject the West and their bullshit where they wanted countries to destroy the quality of life for their own people in order to maintain this false dichotomy of the West stand up for human rights, the world is done with that shit. Now, China has been a gigantic boon for the global working class. Like, I'm preparing the story right now, but they just forgave another debt in African country.
I saw that. Yeah,
I got prepared a segment on it though, so I'll make sure I get anything right. But they were forgiving more African debt, building infrastructure in countries, uplifting the global working class. Now, China, their modus operandi, whether you agree with it or not, is, yo, we're going to do our thing to uplift the global working class. We want to create a modern society that no one ever seen before. And if you listen to mainstream media, when Xi gave his speech when he took over, when they had the third Chinese Communist Party victory for him, they did not tell you what he said. That's for a reason. His speech was literally all about building. Like when they had a new Chinese Communist Party Congress takeover, the whole speech was like, this is what we're going to do next. We got a new plan for the high-speed rail. We're going to develop our economic relationship with this country, with this country, with this country. Meanwhile, turn to a random Donald Trump speech, a Biden speech. It's all about, we got to bomb Russia. We got to make sure we fund the police more. Culture war shit. Shit that does not matter to you. Xi in China is literally about stacking that paper. That's it. So this is horrific. And guys, CJ, I promise you, the next 2 years is going to be so interesting. Like this is going way faster than I thought it would in terms of U.S. unipolarity.
Yeah, it's moving pretty quickly.
Way faster than I thought it would. Now I'm gonna read the headline because I'm gonna keep the story short. China's alliance with Saudi Arabia signals a potential shift in the global order. Hell yes. The U.S. decades-long relationship with Saudi Arabia continues to crumble. Now, this is what China is doing, which won them over in African countries in the global south. And I'm going to explain this concept here. Where China, look at this, I'm just skimming out just for sake of time. Their focus is on trade agreements concerning oil, technology, and infrastructure and security. Essentially, we just bought that paper, baby. We don't give a fuck about anything else. And this is why African countries and Saudi Arabia is shifting towards BRICS in their alliance, because their agreement that two nations would not interfere with each other's domestic affairs. Now, the reason why this is important, because countries like Saudi Arabia and Africa and many other countries, they are tired of the hypocrisy that comes from the West, where they're like, oh my God, Saudi Arabia, look how you're treating your minority populations. And then Saudi Arabia and every single country is like, bro, we see how you treat black people. How about you shut the fuck up before we have a competition?
Yes, exactly.
And we can have a competition who's worse. Like, we down, nigga, we down. And that's how they always respond. And U.S. media does so many times, they completely ignore the response from these countries. They always go, U.S. criticize this country for human rights. Then that's it. The follow-up story is always China and Saudi Arabia. Hey, how about them black people you treating? How about them protesters? And then you know the stories always die at that point.
And it spilled out in Qatar too during the was it the World Cup or whatever, the black guy that was asked a question about, hey, what's going on? It wasn't Qatar, it was Iraq, because he was an Iraq reporter and he was like, it's pronounced Iraq. Do you ever see that clip? The soccer player was like, it's pronounced Iraq.
Yeah,
it's pronounced Iran, not he made the point and was pointing out the same thing, like people ain't falling for this stuff about the United States. What do you think? And the black guy was stumbling over his words. Oh, it was terrible though, because as a black person, he should have said that shit. He should have been like, yeah, Yeah, it is kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I know exactly what clip you're
He,
talking
he
about
should
now.
have turned
I
to his
was
coke. Yeah, what the fuck y'all gonna do about that shit? That would have been funny, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about doing that segment, but I didn't get a chance. I didn't get time to put in one of my segments
Yeah,
because it was kind of embarrassing for that guy.
yeah,
But
he should
anyway,
have said something.
last receipt, and then we wrap up here. This was everywhere in international news. Now, I'm not gonna say that. I think I did see some corporate media covering this because they were like, "Oh my god, G is doing nefarious business in Saudi Arabia." So I did see some Western journalists covering it. But this is why this is significant because I don't know if you guys remember this. I showed a few clips at the time. Let me turn this down. Where you had Biden in MBS meeting, and they could not give a fuck. Like it was like a public humiliation of the Biden administration, right? But throughout their meeting, and guys, I want you to understand, world leaders do these things on purpose. Like none of these people are like ordinary people that grip like that acting and spontaneously. Like for example, when G called out Justin Trudeau, the segment we did with Mark Kimberly, they had cameras ready because they wanted to send a message to the international audience that we are having a hostile stance towards Canada because it's bullshit. So when you see G and MBS hug and fawn over each other the way they have been, and this is just one example. They do this because they know the West is watching.
Yes.
So I just put a one because there's so many.
This ain't for us. This ain't for us. This is
Yeah.
more for Bush. This is more for Raytheon. This is more for the Austin. This is more for Blinken. This is who this is for.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to include that in this segment because China and Saudi Arabia is sending a message that this West unipolar shit is done. And the Biden administration has been kicking themselves over what to do about Saudi Arabia because the United States is in a tough position. This is how you know U.S. dominance is dying. Sorry, this would be my last point. But this is how you know U.S. dominance is dying. Because before, U.S. can pull all sorts of tricks, can sanction, put financial, trade embargoes, and a lot of different ways they can punish countries for not going along with them. They can't do that to Saudi Arabia. They can't do that with China, and they can't do that with India. So for the first time I see in my lifetime that the U.S. do not have any political pull, CJ. When this happens, the only thing the West can do is kick and cry. Oh my God.
Make up stories, make up random crazy stories and put CIA stories into the news and just make up random scenarios. Just crazy shit is going to happen. That's what we're going to start hearing because they don't have anything else. It's kind of like throwing a tantrum. You just tossing a bunch of lies. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. You're just tossing out a bunch of lies. But just think about is it because they're losing? Like, would they be acting this way if the countries that's coming into power were other white Western countries? Like, if this was moving from unipolar United States to multipolar with other white countries, would they have this reaction? Or is it just because it's a non-white country, Nick? What is your opinion on that?
Now, I agree with Mark Kimberly. I think the people on top, there are some of them that are driven by ideology, like they want to see a white culture thrive. The same way they really support Israel because they believe in the Christian ideology of protecting. Like there's some people who believe in that, but there are also a lot of people who don't really give a fuck. They want to lie, they want to make money. But the problem is they are able to convince white people in this country to be anti-China. Guys, why should a poor white person from Alabama be anti-China? They all are. Like the right wing hate China. Why?
What is it they hate China again for? What is it that China? Why do Republicans hate China and Democrats hate like it's so bizarre? So, but go ahead, explain that first part that you were gonna say. Like, why do they hate China again?
So even though the ruling class is less driven by that kind of ideology, they just care about power. They know their supporters. They don't want to see a Chinese. They don't want to see Asian state as the number one power. That it would drive xenophobic imperialist beliefs.
Oh, it's racism. So you're talking about they using race. They using race baiting is what it is.
Yeah, Mark can explain this pretty well. Like, so the reason why you see the extreme anti-China rhetoric is there's a racial element to it. Is because white Americans and European whites, to their core, they want their society to be number one. The idea that China and Chinese people and Asian people are number one, they cannot stomach that. Now, I don't know the exact number, but there are definitely some members of the ruling class that is motivated by that. But I think a lot of people, they don't really care about ideology. It's all about power. But they are using that racial element to manipulate the right-wing people to be anti-China, right? So anyway, any last thoughts on that? And we can continue, we can start to wrap up, CJ. Because I'll stop in a random. We got time.
Well, you're gonna cover this. You can go in more detail and probably have more articles. So probably over the next several days, it's probably more articles are gonna come out.
Yeah, CJ, I tell you, this is the short version of the story. I cut it down for sake of this live stream, but I'm gonna do a longer expose. Maybe with Aaron Good. Aaron Good is fantastic on foreign policy. So maybe Thursday I'm gonna do a full Saudi Arabia China segment. Thursday when I have Aaron, that's gonna be a big foreign policy conversation.